Imagine your boss looking you straight in the eye and telling you that your body is the reason you don't deserve a promotion, that you are not woman enough to stand in front of clients. That is exactly what happened to Anna. This is the story of how she turned months of humiliation into a cold, documented revenge. She ended her boss's career. Anna was in her mid-20s when she landed the job she had dreamed of. It was a professional services firm with big clients, modern offices, and a clear career path. She wasn't flashy or dramatic in appearance. She was just a normal young woman with professional, discreet clothing. She had a focus on doing her work well. From the first months, her performance reviews were positive. She met deadlines. She stayed late when needed. Clients appreciated her thoroughness and calm attitude. Her direct boss was Laura. Laura was in her 40s and had been at the company for years. To upper management, Laura looked like the perfect leader, polished, articulate, always on brand. But for the people below her, she was something else entirely. A controlling, image-obsessed manager who used subtle humiliation as a tool. When Anna joined the team, Laura welcomed her with a professional smile. But behind that smile, Anna quickly sensed competition rather than support. At first, the comments sounded almost like advice. You might want to wear something a bit more feminine for client days. Have you considered a little more makeup? Clients tend to remember faces with more presence. Anna didn't love those remarks, but she tried to brush them off. She told herself it might just be part of the firm's culture, something she would eventually get used to. Then came the internal opening that changed everything. The company needed someone to represent them in a major project with an important client. It was a big opportunity, more visibility, more responsibility, a clear line on the CV. Anna had done the heavy lifting for that very project. She did the research, the slides, the numbers, everything. So it seemed natural that she would at least be considered to present. When Anna asked Laura about the role, Laura scheduled a quick chat in a small meeting room. The room was empty when Anna walked in. Laura closed the door. She sat down opposite her, and she said the sentence that would burn into Anna's memory forever. "Look, you do good work, but you're not woman enough to be in front of this client." Anna froze. "Sorry, what do you mean?" she managed to ask. Laura continued, in the same calm, managerial tone. "They expect a different image, a woman with more, curves, more presence. It's not personal, it's business." In one moment, Laura reduced years of study, effort, and proven performance to the size and shape of Anna's body. It wasn't about skills or results or competence. It was about whether or not she fit Laura's idea of what a woman for the client should look like. After that meeting, nothing sounded like innocent advice anymore. The comments escalated into open microaggressions. In front of colleagues, Laura would say things like, "We need someone more charismatic for this," or the client will fall asleep, glancing at Anna, or she would say, "Some people are more back-office material," and that's okay. It was never quite explicit enough to be clearly illegal in a single sentence. But taken together, the message was brutal and consistent. Anna thought about quitting more than once. She went home exhausted. She replayed conversations in her head. She wondered if she was overreacting. But every time she tried to convince herself she was being too sensitive. Laura would prove her wrong with another joke or cutting remark. At some point, something inside Anna shifted. She realized that if she walked away quietly, Laura would just do the same thing to the next woman who didn't fit her ideal body image. So Anna made a decision. If Laura was going to play dirty, Anna was going to play documented. The first step was to create a record. Anna opened a private, password-protected folder in her personal cloud. Every time Laura said something inappropriate, Anna wrote it down. Date, time, place, who was present, and the exact words as closely as she could remember them. Whenever Laura sent emails that hinted at her obsession with appearance, comments about being client material or having the right look, Anna forwarded them to a secure personal email address. She saved them as PDFs, screenshots of chat messages, notes after meetings. Everything went into the archive. Over time, Anna noticed she wasn't alone. Other women on the team, especially those who didn't match a very narrow physical ideal, were also being sidelined. They were given the heavy analytical work, but rarely allowed to be the face of projects. Meanwhile, women who did fit Laura's preferred aesthetic, even with less experience, were pushed forward to client-facing roles. Outside the office, over coffee or lunch, stories began to surface. One colleague said Laura had told her to lose a few kilos if she wanted to be taken seriously. Another said Laura had suggested she dye her hair because a certain client liked blondes. Someone else mentioned being told that her dress was too plain to close deals. The pattern was clear. Professional worth, filtered through the lens of physical appearance. Anna didn't pressure anyone to testify, but she listened, and she remembered. She understood that, in cases like this, a single complaint can be dismissed as a misunderstanding. A documented pattern, backed by multiple voices, is much harder to ignore. She waited. She worked. She built her case quietly, letting time turn individual incidents into a timeline. The breaking point came with another big project. Once again, the firm was competing for an important contract. Once again, Anna did the detailed prep work: analysis, strategy, slides, risk assessment. And once again, the question came up: who would go in front of the client? When Anna asked whether she'd be in the room this time, Laura didn't even bother to hide the insult. In front of other colleagues, she said, "Don't worry. You're more brains than image. Let the girls who actually sell take care of that." Silence, a couple of awkward laughs, eyes looking away. Everyone had heard it. Everyone knew exactly what she meant. Anna could have cried. She could have yelled. Instead, she mentally underlined that phrase and added it to the file in her head. She knew the company had an official policy against harassment and discrimination. She also knew those policies often sit in a PDF nobody reads, but she had something that policies alone don't provide: detailed, organized proof. Anna spent a weekend assembling everything. She created a clear, chronological document. It included specific quotes from Laura, with dates and contexts. It contained emails and messages where appearance was mentioned as a criterion for promotion. It listed key opportunities, showing who got them and how their professional merits compared. And finally, it included a summary of informal testimonies from colleagues willing to speak up. When her dossier was ready, she used the company's official channel to request a meeting with human resources. No vague complaints. Her message was precise. "I want to report a pattern of discriminatory and harassing behavior by my direct manager. I have specific evidence, and I am prepared to share it." In the meeting with HR, they initially followed the usual script. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Perhaps your manager didn't mean it that way. We could talk to her informally first. Anna calmly pushed back. She pulled out printed emails. She showed detailed logs. She pointed out patterns instead of isolated incidents. It became harder and harder for HR to hide behind misinterpretation when faced with dates, direct quotes, and messages that clearly tied professional opportunities to physical traits. Once HR realized there was a real risk, not just of internal conflict, but of a potential legal and reputational problem, they opened a formal investigation. They interviewed Anna, then quietly started talking to other women on the team. With the door opened, people began to speak more freely. Some hesitated, but others confirmed similar experiences. Comments about their bodies, about who was pretty enough for client meetings, about who was just back office material. Laura, who had cultivated a perfect image toward upper management for years, suddenly had cracks in her facade. Those cracks were made of other people's stories and of her own words written in black and white. The company had a choice: stand by a manager whose behavior exposed them to liability and bad press, or act decisively and protect their own image. They chose themselves. Officially, there was no big public scandal, no press release, no dramatic announcement. But inside the firm, everyone just happened to notice when Laura was quietly removed from her position. First, there was talk of a mutual separation. Then she disappeared from internal emails and org charts altogether. Anna, meanwhile, stayed. She was reassigned to report to a different manager with a much better internal reputation. Slowly, the opportunities that had been denied to her actually started to appear. Invitations to present to clients, more visible roles in important projects, performance reviews that finally matched her real contribution. It wasn't an overnight fairy tale, but it was a real shift. The most powerful part of this story isn't just that Laura's career took a serious hit. It's the message that was sent to the rest of the company. Being profitable and polished on the surface is not enough if your leadership style is built on discrimination and humiliation. Turning women's bodies into hiring and promotion criteria is unethical. It is dangerous. And, in the right hands, fully punishable. Anna didn't become the scandal girl. She went back to work, quietly, professionally, with the same discipline as before. But people looked at her differently now. Not with pity, but with a kind of respect you can't fake. She was no longer just the young analyst who did the background work. She was the person who had the courage and the strategic intelligence to say, "No more," in a way the company could not ignore. If you're listening to this and recognizing parts of your own story, there are two lessons here. First, you do not have to endure the unbearable forever. Second, written memory is one of your strongest allies. Logs, emails, messages, dates, patterns. Do you think Anna went too far by ending her boss's career? Or did she simply draw a line that should have been there from the start? Tell me in the comments what you think. And if this story made you angry, but satisfied by the end, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Here, revenge isn't chaos. It's justice, carefully planned and perfectly executed.